8 o'clock, and here we are at the intersection, and we continue. It's just like nonstop. Even my 9-year-old grandson, who started this with us, at whatever age he was, is like, "Oh, Thursday morning." He knows like Thursday morning. It's like sacred time or something. Oh, that's not a bad line, is it, Bill? It's sacred time. Yeah. Anyway, so Alice, maybe you could do an announcement today on the upcoming Action Lab. Give us the full scoop.
The full scoop. Saturday, March 21st, we will be at UT doing an action lab for the IDD portal as well as our IDD champions and helping to move that work forward. So we hope to see you there. You can still register. Um, don't be too afraid of, if you're like me, I hear UT and I'm like, I'm gonna get lost and I don't know where to park. But there's going to be plenty of directional signs. The map is, I'll put the registration link in the chat, and the map and everything is going to be on there. It's on our latest newsletter. So I'll double check, make sure that's the right link. If not, I'll put the other one. Um, but we hope to see you there. And then we will be doing a follow-up roundtable, still settling on the location for that. But the purpose of the action labs is to create actions. So you're coming in, you're learning about the work that is happening and finding ways to connect your work with that work because we are all connected. And one way or another, we're going to connect or touch with that other work that's happening. So let me know if you need more info, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.
And I'm pretty sure that Alice is referring to UT Health out at the medical center.
Yes, that's the one I'm referring to. All I know
Yeah,
is it's big and I get lost.
I know.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I know. The medical center, right? Um, but there are going to be there are going to be panels and breakout times, and should be good. Just one more, reach into community. Are there any other announcements of things coming up in the near future in our community?
I'll jump in a minute there, Ann, with the March 21st Action Lab. This is Bill from Sacred. The March 21st Action Lab, we're going to have a special guest from the Good Cup Coffee Cart. And so if you haven't had an opportunity to see this company in action, then it's worth coming out just for the beginning of the day, just for that to. But this is a coffee catering business that's run by an individual here in town who hires people with disabilities. And they make great coffee, and so I love to hire them every time. So not only do you get to come for free to the Action Lab, you get a free bougie coffee. So if you want to come try that out, it's they do great lattes and macchiatos and all the other things that everybody says that nobody really knows what it is. So
And,
um, come
and
on
you'll
out.
get
It's gonna be
a
it's gonna be
taco.
a great time.
You'll get a taco from Las Palapas and a cup of coffee. What more could you want?
What more
And
could you
make
want?
friends.
I know.
Genius.
I know. Sacred perfect, right? Yeah. Any other announcements? And of course, you're always welcome to put announcements and links and things like that into chat. So this gives us an opportunity to hear more even from NAMI and specifically from Lauren this morning. It's very exciting, by the way, Jerry. I see Jerry Gregory there. Jerry was in the very beginnings of Sacred and NAMI's growth and connections. And so it's really great to see you here too, and everyone. So grateful you were able to come this morning. So Doug has also promised us in the near future to talk about the process that NAMI went through in order to find Lauren. And because I think just because the work that we're about in terms of community collaboration and compassion in the world, what I know about the process that NAMI utilized, it's one of the most beautiful processes that I've watched, the most respectful. Um, it just honored everybody from those who work and serve to those, well, they all work and serve, the board, those who are on staff, and the community. And they took a process, it took the time, and had a strong executive director in that position and found another strong executive director. So Doug's going to come back in the future and just talk about that process so that we can learn from that, which I'm looking forward to. So, Lauren, that's kind of my way of introduction. And I want invite Doug to jump in at any point, especially if Lauren is being too humble about things, Doug, and we need to hear more to do so. So, Lauren, I'm handing it to you, and welcome to At the Intersection, but welcome into this amazing collaborative work, which would not exist without NAMI. Really strong partnership there, bringing all of this forward.
Thank,
Welcome.
thank you, Anne. I will second what Bill said about Good Cup Coffee. I've had the opportunity to enjoy their coffee cart, and some of the work they do supporting those with disabilities is amazing, as well as the coffee. So I would also agree to go out and get your cup from Good Cup Coffee. In the vein of announcements, if I do want to make one announcement before I kind of jump into my remarks, and that is that our own Maria Henigman will be on a panel on March 21st, hosted by Doctors for Social Responsibility. She's going to be talking about, the panel is mental health awareness in the young. And the topic for the day is gun safety and suicide prevention. So Maria will be representing NAMI on March 21st at that event. As I transition to just kind of talk about my arrival and new role here at NAMI, I do want to I see a bunch of our staff and board members on the call. So Dr. Whited, Jerry, Maria, Brandy, I see you. I think we have some more staff members that are on the call. So I think that's just emblematic of the support that this transition has received, and that it's really been teed up and set up very well by Doug. And I think, Anne, you really alluded to that. And Doug is really the one who I think precipitated this invitation so that I would have the opportunity to meet this incredible group. And that goes to, I think, just the example of the work that Doug and I have been doing together. When I think he and I were the first two people on the line when it opened, and we were talking about some stuff in the background, and Anne jumped in and she said, "Of course, the two of you are working." Well, really more, of course, Doug is working, because we all know that Doug works nonstop to support the community. And that's just an example of how Doug has been just an amazing partner in this transition to make sure that the work continues uninterrupted. And I consider myself to be very fortunate to be able to rely on him and for guidance and excuse me, and mentorship and just understanding of things that I don't have all the background to. So let me start by saying thank you, Doug, for your friendship and partnership in this transition. And I agree, Anne, I think it would be great for him to come back and kind of talk through how he and the board decided to lay out this transition, because it was really well thought out and really methodical. And so on that note, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lauren Byrd. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on NAMI because I feel like everybody knows NAMI. I really wanted to kind of introduce myself and then talk to you about what I see for the future. But I came to San Antonio be close to 5 years ago this summer by way of Uncle Sam. I was active duty Air Force for 21 years and retired here in San Antonio. My last assignment was at Lackland Air Force Base. While I was on active duty, I was a medical service corps officer or hospital administrator. So the majority of my career I spent in hospital and healthcare leadership, ensuring the delivery of healthcare to men and women in uniform and their families, both stateside and abroad. I had the privilege to serve in a number of overseas locations in both combat operations, partnership building capacity operations, and humanitarian operations. And that really just kind of solidified my love and desire for continued service When I decided to retire from active duty, I wanted to stay in that kind of health and human services realm. I learned about a program called Master Leadership Program, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, and that's where I met Bill Neely, and I were actually in class 20 together. Um, and the reason that I was interested in MLP was because as a military member, I loved it. I got to travel all over the world, but I never really felt like I got to plug into community because I was never there long enough, never in one spot long enough to really feel a connection. And so I loved the idea of MLP because I wanted to continue to serve, and I wanted to serve specifically in the community that I decided to call home, that my husband and I decided to call home here in San Antonio. So I went through the MLP process and learned a lot about the nonprofits in San Antonio. And in serving, also, I serve on another board, excuse me, a nonprofit board here in San Antonio. And during this time, since I left the military, I have been working as a consultant to human service nonprofit organizations nationally. Most of my clients have been in the IDD space, so working with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, home and community-based provider services, autism, mobile crisis teams, substance use disorders, all things kind of human services. And that really led to a culmination of me realizing that I loved what I was doing in the human services space. I loved working with nonprofits because I love service, but I really missed being at the level of impact. Meaning, I was working with clients for 16 to 20 weeks. We'd build really great programs together. I was really focusing on helping nonprofits build strategic plans and growth strategies because we know how much the funding environment has changed for nonprofits, over the last few years, and sustainability for a lot of these organizations was an issue. Some of them were at risk of losing their ability to operate and serve. And so we'd come up with these great plans, and then I would leave. And I never would get to see, well, how did it go? Who was served? What were the outcomes? What were how do we move the needle? And so I started to look for an opportunity where I could be back in an organization where I could be closer to the individuals that were being served because I really wanted to be able to see the impact. And so I'd started looking for opportunities. And when I learned about NAMI, it was really, I still try to think about how I learned about this opportunity. And I have to just say it was really a God thing to be able to have the intersection of serving in San Antonio in the health and human service space, really being able to invest in the community was just a beautiful opportunity that I was very, very excited about. Um, and remain so to this day, and so I've been in the seat now, I guess 3 weeks, three going on 4 weeks. It's been a lot of learning, drinking from the fire hose, as I tell my team. But everybody in the community has just been so gracious and so lovely to work with, and so supportive of the transition that it really makes me very, very humbled to be a part of the team and to continue to be able to do this work. So, as we think about what NAMI has done, one of the things that I feel really grateful for is that how strong of a network and foundation Doug has built within the community. Because it's so readily apparent when I meet individuals and they say, "Oh, NAMI, you guys have done this and you guys have done that," and everybody so far has been able to tell me a success story or an impact story of what NAMI has done for them, for a loved one, for a coworker, for a family member. And so first and foremost, I really just want to continue that legacy and continue that tradition. We are looking at really expanding the number of folks that we reach with what I would say our quote unquote core classes, right? The signature classes that NAMI is known for. The peer-to-peer, family-to-family classes is really trying to reach more individuals. We have some good work happening with Kendall County, the behavioral working group up there, trying to move some more NAMI services specifically up into the Kendall County area to expand expand the NAMI footprint and presence. And so I think you'll see more inclusion with Kendall County in the coming year. Additionally, we're going to continue to build on the work that's been done getting out into the community via schools and via congregations, otherwise known as NAMI Bridges to Care, really re-energizing some cohorts that have been a little inactive. Right before I came on, Doug made some new hires that are really focusing on bringing back some of the congregations that lost a little bit of momentum, and then adding new congregations. And our youth team has really done a dynamic job of getting some entire schools certified in our teen mental health champion program. And so we look forward to expanding that to additional schools as well. We know that that Texas, passed a bill, House Bill 3, back in 23-24, that requires all teachers to have some mental health awareness training by the 2028-2029 school year. And we absolutely think that there's a role for NAMI to play in the San Antonio community to help make that happen. I think one of the avenues where maybe NAMI hasn't been as present before, but that you'll see going forward, is embedding and working with the business community. So, we have done incredibly well working with families, working with peers. We've got a strong foothold in congregations and schools that we're going to continue to expand on. But now it's really time to also focus on working with businesses on how can they help people show up and bring their whole selves to work, right? Because all of the people that we're working with in schools, all of the people that we're working with in the community and in churches, they go to work and they have employers. And when they have challenges at home, those show up at work, and they show up, right, in the forms of absenteeism. They show up in the forms of decreased productivity when individuals have mental illness challenges and they don't feel like they're able to have an inclusive environment in the work environment where they can get support. And so through some work that's been done through our team here, we're really going to try to focus on partnering with businesses on bringing some of the same NAMI concepts about how do we support people with mental illness? How do we support the loved one of somebody that's struggling with a mental illness, so that our business community can receive the same benefits that we're seeing in our schools and in our congregations, and then in our other networks within San Antonio. So I think that's probably going to be a focus and a change. I wouldn't say a change, but maybe a focus that you haven't seen NAMI necessarily present in before, that will really be moving out and trying to work with businesses to make sure that their workforces also have the same level of support that congregations and schools are trying to implement. Let me see. Anything else I wanted to mention? Excuse me. I I think that's really about all of the things that I wanted to highlight, but I would love to answer any questions, or to kick any questions Doug's way. If somebody asks me something I don't know, at this time, happy to answer any questions.
I don't have a question, Lauren, but I do
Mhm.
have kind of ooh, that's a good idea. When you talked about our private organizations and making sure that they are connected to good mental health information and support and things like that, I'm working with a brand new group. I call it at the sticky note level. You're still figuring
Yeah.
it out. So it's not even, it's at the sticky note level.
Okay.
But small but powerful group that wants to do that. They're like, everything else seems to be, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Where is it already happening? Which is my big thing. Um, so the next time I go to one of those meetings, I'll let you know, and then you can send the appropriate person, because something that is in the long term, written at the very bottom of the sticky note and long term vision is an adult CRCG. And I'm connected with the youth CRCG. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but NAMI does attend our CRCG. It's usually Adam. Um, but we don't have one for adults where community can wrap around the person and the family because this individual has already exhausted all their other resources. And now it's community that needs to come together and go, okay, together we can do this. But I'll be keeping in touch with you on
Please,
that because that's going to be important. Thank
please,
you.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
a great example too of the intersection of what we do on Thursday mornings. A lot of these intersections. So
Mhm.
Peter Onfray has his hand up.
Yeah, Peter.
Thank you, Ann. And thank you, Lauren, for your concise overview of the work and your background. Very impressed. And of course, I'm looking forward to the process because it's all about the process and your passion to want to be connected on the grassroots. And uh, I concur with NAMI's impact and just wanted to share from my perspective. I'm operations administrator, New Life Christian Center. We launched a Bridges to Care program about 3 years ago. You know, we have 14 champions and 2 support groups and trying to revive those other churches that were on board as well, because we were brought on through another church that empowered us, and so we're trying to build that in our community. So again, so much gratefulness for Doug and his connection to bringing all this together. Uh, but the one thing you said that really struck me because of where we are right now with the business community.
Mhm.
Uh, I went through that leadership program, and one of the cohorts that came and presented to us when we were in that program, they actually incorporated within their project a mental wellness component into their outreach into a corridor revitalization. And we already had our mental wellness program, Bridges to Care, and I didn't see the connection, right? And so I still felt the churches would be that. So we're building the church component in that corridor, but you just reemphasize that through the business community, you can
Yeah.
incorporate it very directly. And so it just kind of re-inspired me to make that reach in a different way to
Yeah.
that corridor and expand the work that NAMI is doing beyond the Bridges to Care program, which is great. I'm an advocate for it and look forward to continuing to grow it. But my question to you is, uh, give me some background on your faith walk. What's your background as far as how you got here and how your faith brought you here?
Well, I would say, I think interestingly enough, a lot of times my background or my faith has been developed in the foxhole, so to speak, right? Um, some of the same reasons that I find that I feel very passionate about mental health and mental illness and giving people the opportunity to ask for help or from the trauma that I have sustained as a veteran and from my active duty time. And so I use that phrase. Some of the times when I have been at my lowest and have been um, most fearful and had the hardest times were the times when God showed up, right? When I was away from home in not great situations. And I will say that from a threat perspective, fearful and not knowing for sure what was going to come next and being in that foxhole and not knowing how to get out and asking for his guidance and help. And he showed up. And as we know, sometimes he doesn't always show up exactly like we want him to, the way we think he should. And sometimes it takes a long, long way to get there. And sometimes I didn't ask for help when I should have early enough. But at the end of the day, he showed up and he's why I can sit here today. And so I think that there is 100%, but there's still an intersection between faith and mental health support because we know that sometimes there are still interventions that are required that require more than faith. And I think that's where it's really important that individuals in the church and the faith community and the congregation know that it's not it doesn't mean that you're any less faithful. It doesn't mean that you believe in your creator any less. It just means that you need to use the tools that are available to you that he has given you in the form of therapy, in the form of medication, if that's appropriate, in the form of hospitalization. There are just so many different ways that I think God shows up for all of us to help provide for our mental health. But for me, I was raised in the church at an early age, but I don't really think I had a relationship with God until probably really until I think got to my first overseas assignment. when I really on my own was like, oh God, I can't get out of this without you, you know.
Mhm.
And then he's been there every day since. Well, he was always there, but I think I've just learned to turn to him every day since. Now, what else? Does that answer your question, Peter?
Good question.
Thank you for
At
sharing,
the
Lauren. Good work.
at the intersection. Hey, I read something. I'm a little behind. I mean, it popped up, of course, on my screen somewhere, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I read that Mackenzie Scott gave 59 million to NAMI National. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, you did. It's so funny you should bring that up. So I was just on a meeting yesterday with it's the Executive Directors Council, and they were talking about how NAMI National is putting together a committee to talk about how to use that donation. It is important to identify that when money is donated to NAMI National, it does not necessarily trickle down, in some type of um, calculated or equitable increment to the state organizations and then the local affiliates. Just like when you donate to NAMI Greater San Antonio, that money stays local. So in general, money is kept where it's raised, if you will. And so I know there are some folks who are like, oh, NAMI got all this money. It's like, well, NAMI National did, but we'll see, how that impacts the affiliates. But they did actually just yesterday afternoon talk about how NAMI National is putting together a committee to talk about what to do and how to make the greatest impact with that donation from Mackenzie Scott. And so I don't know how or if that will impact NAMI Greater San Antonio.
Well, we all know the ripple effect and collaboration. So even if the money stays national, it will ripple whatever that is. It will impact San Antonio in some way. So I was like, why didn't I know this?
Yeah,
But um, I know that now. So and we're getting everybody's all excited out there because it's this investment, right?
it
In
is.
mental health and wellness. So that's good news. And people who have gone really through, like you said, the foxholes, but the foxholes of mental health and wellness. And we should have Doug come and do that history of, bringing it. And Doug's going, no, but bringing all that forward. It was the drumbeat of Pathways to Hope, to break the stigma. So it's out there. Doug, add to that, please.
I was just going to say I was just at a national board meeting last week, and the subject of Mackenzie Scott's gift was a significant part of day two. And I would say yes, there's going to be a committee put together to think strategically, and but I think one of the most hopeful things I heard was that NAMI has over 600 affiliates throughout the country. They're not all at the same level. So a significant amount of that money is going to go into a program to create and to help foster greater affiliate sustainability and to do, I think, in fact, a lot of what we've done here in San Antonio. But that's a big deal because we need better support all across the country. And in Texas, we need strong affiliates. So it was a big gift and it'll have a big impact. There were two other things I wanted to add. One, to what Lauren had talked about. NAMI is going to continue to be involved in Pathways to Hope. And I think the other thing when we talk about NAMI, we talk about education, advocacy, and support. I think coming up in the next several years, the advocacy portion of that is going to be really important to help the community speak up, get more knowledgeable, and speak up about things like jail diversion that you may have been reading about in the paper, a new psychiatric hospital, a recovery campus. And really, NAMI, that's part of what NAMI does is speak up and give voice to that, but in community with everybody else on this call.
Thanks, Doug. It's good for us to know, the local and the national, because that's how real impact happens. We do our part and it goes out, and what's happening at large comes back in. So it's much like a circulatory system, but we won't get overly philosophical here. But any other thoughts or questions for Lauren this morning? Lauren, we try to get, the meat of the message by 8:30, and look at that. You're a good director. You've got that all figured out, right?
Thanks.
Um,
I'm going to drop my email in the chat just so
Good.
that if there's anybody that I didn't get a chance to answer a question, or I welcome the opportunity to connect with anybody else on this call, outside of the call. So I will drop my email in chat, and thank you, Anne, for having me today. Thank you. Thanks, Doug, for setting this up. And I just am really, really grateful to be a part of this community. So happy to be here.
And welcome. We're so glad to have you as well. I put into chat, if I can find it back, our speaker next week, who Alice probably can tell us more about, is Melanie Grenz. And she's the project manager for the Center on Brain Injury Research and Training at the University of Oregon. So you can scroll up in chat and see her detailed information. So I
Here.
hope
She's
what?
joining us today. Melanie is here.
I'm here. Yes. Good morning,
Yay.
everyone.
So
Oh,
she'll be with us next week.
Well, great. We'll see you next week, Melanie, at the intersection.
Thank
And I did ask Doug if he might come back in 2 weeks and talk about the process, because, we know that mental health and wellness is not just an individual thing or just a family thing or a community thing or a business thing or a nonprofit. It's everybody. It's a process. It's a system. It's compassion as well. And so I don't know if Doug will be able to make it in 2 weeks, but even hearing about that process is growing and rippling all the work that we're trying to do. And there's so many people that I come across these days and in our larger context who are going, things like, I don't know what to do, or what could we be doing? And my general response is to just keep doing what we're doing and more of it. But more sometimes is thinking smarter, right? And working with collaboration and strengthening, that web that we've been creating together, and not just, I could say, in the last 9 years, and that's the time of I was with the city, but we can all start reaching back into our San Antonio history to recognize that it has been community who's been creating this for decades, in one form or another, from the faith community to nonprofits, even seeing the city, at least at the one point, and making that intentional investment and that kind of initiative. And I don't think that'll stop forever. It's just kind of on pause, and we need to all do our work there. But it's not just about us. We've got a very beautiful, I think, unique history. And when people even ask visitors who come, but even those of us who live here in San Antonio, what is it about San Antonio? That San Antonio thing, right? That makes us unique. What is that? And I would say it's all the people who keep working in this way and very intentionally, across different sectors. I'd love to hear this morning about reaching into the business sector more. And but that who's missing always, it's kind of like who's missing. And to think about that in sectors, but also individuals and leadership. And I think that's one of the things that makes San Antonio San Antonio. It makes it unique. I remember, and this is years ago, probably almost 30 years ago, but Gandhi's grandson, Arun, who is no longer on the planet, but he was in town visiting San Antonio and working on peace efforts. But at one point, he was like, I don't know if I've ever been to another community like San Antonio. the faith community, interfaith, works together. So like there's this intentionality and they work together. And he said, I don't experience that anywhere else. And to have visitors come and recognize that, it's like living the sermon instead of just preaching it, and acting upon what we know are best practices and research. We don't always talk that way. We use different language in different places, but bottom line is, working from, our heart, taking action, courage in the world. And I didn't mean to say all that this morning. I'm just rambling, but I really believe that's who we are. And out of that has come sacred action labs that have come out of community conversations. I mean, we should probably have a history telling kind of morning at the intersection sometime where, and we can do that. We can invite a couple people, maybe who've been, and maybe do a series. Hadn't thought about that. But people who've been working in San Antonio from different sectors across decades and kind of, give us their view of how that through history, San Antonio has grown into who we are. And because I think it was Martin Luther King who said, in order to know where we're going, we must first know where we've been, which is always an ongoing process. What brings us to this moment and how does it inform where we're headed next? And we've got a lot of beautiful, important information and people in our history like that. So I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. We're getting done a little bit earlier than we normally do. So you've got, how many minutes that you didn't know that you were going to have before? New minutes. So enjoy those. And we will see you next week at the intersection with Melanie. And don't forget, you can use today's video, the recording. So I encourage NAMI to put that as a link on your website, but we can all use this recording to tell others about what's happening with NAMI, to get others to know Lauren and where that's moving forward. And all those listings, all those recordings are found at sacred.org for our use. Thanks again. Have great weekends. And it was gorgeous yesterday. And it looks like it's going to be another gorgeous day. This is when you get out into San Antonio, not July. But don't tell visitors that. We like visitors coming, but now is the time, right? Great weekends. Great to see you at the intersection. We'll see you next
Have
week.
a blessed weekend, San Antonio.
Thanks, Kendra.